Hi, welcome back. Today we are in a different space than usual. We have a new machine next to me and everything's new, and we have a horrible echo in here. But first of all, new grinder. This is a Deckel S1 tool and cutter grinder. Newest addition to my collection of obsolete machine tools. But hey, Stefan, you already got a tool and cutter grinder. Yes, that's true. But the Knut that I got is a universal tool and cutter grinder. That's from its kinematic. It's a surface grinder with an articulating head that can tilt, swivel, and rotate. And while it's very universal, it can do surface grinding, cylinder grinding, tool cutter grinding. It can do really whatever you can imagine. Setup times for the machine are quite long because you're swapping large attachments all the time around that you have to bolt to the table and maybe even indicate. And I do a lot of tool grinding for in-house purposes, for doing customer parts, form tools, and tools for micro machining that have very positive cutting action, stuff like that. And I wanted a tool and cutter grinder that is made for grinding tools and not a true universal grinder like the Knut grinder that I have, or a Walter tool and cutter grinder, or a Cincinnati number 2. There are dedicated tool and cutter grinders like a Deckel S1, this one, Deckel S11, or a Cincinnati mono set that are really catered for tool and cutter grinding. This is a very old and somewhat of an odd design. I think this machine originated in the 50s. This particular one is built in 64, and when this machine was new in 64, it cost about 20,000 Deutsche Mark, which is in today's money a lot. I think it's around 70,000 euros. And yeah, I found this on eBay. It looked by the pictures in very good condition. The accessories that came with it were basically what I needed. A ton of wheel hubs to take grinding wheels on the spindle, and took the car and the trailer, drove down there, looked at the machine, decided to buy it, picked it up, put it on a trailer, dragged it home, and realized that this thing is heavy. You can't take off this whole attachment here and the spindle head, and you're left with the base of the machine, which by the time I bought the machine, I thought I could maneuver down the stairs, and it might be possible, but that's more like I don't need to do that. That's dangerous. It's bloody heavy. It's about 250 to 300 kilos, and my staircase down the stairs is narrow and has a 180-degree turn. So we decided to clear out a storage room of the house that's really only used for storage, nothing else, and set it up as a second shop, as a second machine shop. So I have my main shop with the lathe, the mill, my surface grinder, and my workbench. I have the room with the CNC routers. I have the shed with the sandblasting cabinet. And now I have a shop number 4, which is for now tool and cutter grinding, and in future also maybe CNC turning, because this room is decently sized. Okay, quick room tour. This is the front side of the room. Entrance, window, which the shades are down because outside it's dark and I don't want to be here on in the spotlight. This cabinet is going away. This table is just here for because I don't have anything in here yet. Engine hoist, which I borrowed to move the machine at all. Now we move the camera. Deckel S1 tool and cutter grinder 400 volts three-phase, a window with daylight if it was day outside. That's where the three-phase comes into the room. Not very rigid shelving for all the tooling. I have something better on order, but this has to do now. And you might notice that there is an empty case of Mate tea. That the room is quite high. The ceiling is like 3 meters in here, which makes this room really nice. I really like it. I have daylight. The sun only shines in the morning onto the machine. During the day, it's the sun moves like this direction, and I don't get uneven heat on the machine, so that's good. Currently there is no central heating in this shop, but during the next month I will have central heating put in here, so I can work in here in the winter too. The room is insulated but not heated. Okay, that's an overview of the machine. And the keen observer might think that this is the headstock of a Deckel S1 tool and cutter grinder. And while it looks like it with the spindle and down here with this fine adjusting axle here, it is not. It's a beefed up version of a Deckel S1, Deckel S1 D-bit grinder, but the spindle is substantially heavier. It's a 2-speed spindle, 3,700 and 7,500 RPM via a 2-speed motor. The motor is down in the cabinet. It's a decent powerful motor, and drives the spindle via a flat belt. Has a way larger spindle taper than the D-bit grinders, and also the dust extractor snout here is also not on the D-bit grinder. So this is not the headstock of an SO grinder, but it's very similar in design. And it's rigidly mounted to the base. It's aligned with 2 keys on a T-slot base, and it doesn't move. It will not move. All adjustment and all grinding motions come from this contraption over here on the side. This mounts also to a large T-slot base here. We have one axis here that moves in and out. This is fine adjust with a hand crank. And we have a roller bearing guided table. And this moves silk smooth now that I rebuilt it. When I got the grinder, it moved very lightly, unless you put the heavy load off to the side of the table. Then it somehow jammed up, and I have a picture for you how the bearings in this table look. You have these cross rollers, and they need to be oriented every other direction for each roller. And when I took it apart, the rollers were all in the same direction, and then it's obvious why it jams up. So fixed that, put it together correctly, and now the table moves with basically no effort at all. No stick slip at all. You can take this and do really delicate grinding motions. This is your main grinding direction. That's your grinding. That's like the table traverse or the table side to side on a surface grinder. Then we have this here. This is the vertical column. This moves up and down. Has about 50 millimeter range. Then we have this here. This allows this whole thing here to swivel 360 degrees. We have this base here, which can also rotate 360 degrees. Just have to be careful not to bump into the grinding wheel. So we have the rotation. We have a second rotation below which swivels the whole bearing table to change the orientation of the roll bearing table to do the grinding motion on an angle. Let's keep it like this. Then we have to hold this because this is heavy. Then we have this motion here. This is another angular setting, like this, plus minus 30 degrees. But wait, there is more. Then we have the dividing head. This is a Morse tape of 4 dividing head with direct indexing and also fine worm feed, which takes Morse tape of 4 tooling with a twist. This is Deckel style Morse tape of 4 with an S20 by 2 buttress thread draw thread. This gets drawn into the Morse tape of 4 like this. So that's the work head. That's the main work head for round tooling. We also have a vise. This is for example to grind lathe tooling. So we got that motion, that motion. We have one more slide. We have up here another roller bearing slide. This one here, which has about 100 millimeter travel, and this is used for spiral grinding. If you use the spiral generator of this machine, which this allows to link the rotation of a tool in here to a linear motion via a steel cable. But I don't have that accessory. Then we have a grinding spindle. This has a very large nut here, and back here on the headstock we have a button, which is a spindle lock, and we take a wrench or a parallel plier and we break it loose and draw the wheel hub off the spindle, off the taper. This is the taper, and this is the wheel hub. It has this large OD thread which engages with the nut. It's also a keyed spindle, which is nice especially for super abrasives like CBN or diamond, because the wheel goes always the same orientation and run out error on the spindle. You do not have to dress the crap out of your CBN on diamond. The grinder came with a ton of wheel hubs and wheels. This is a large diamond straight wheel, 100 millimeter wheel. This is the max allowed size of a wheel on this grinder, just as on a Deckel SOE grinder. 100 millimeter is max. Came with a ton of diamond cup wheels, all on these long-necked tool holders. Also a bunch of diamond cut-off wheels, which is very nice because those are useful. Then came with a ton of these shorter grinding wheel hubs. These are used for larger cup wheels, like the 100 millimeter cup wheel that's used. But it also came with this style of arbor, which takes this adapter arbor, goes in here. It's oriented with a pin in the slot, and this loose part, the smaller arbor here, gets pulled in with a screw from the back. Then you have this the ability to hold small grinding wheels like this, or even smaller, onto the spindle. There is even an adapter, which I don't have, for collets, so you can use small mounted grinding points to do, for example, sharpening and threading dies. We have this up here. This goes in and out, and it has a T-slot here. And this is to mount an array of wheel guards, and you have the ability to move it in and out and adjust it however you need it to be safe. And back here we have this articulating dust extraction port, which the end adapter here goes out, and we have different attachments. Flat nozzle, this larger one, and I think a large round one. This looks a little bit clumsy, but it's very nicely adjustable, and it stays in place once you set it. All held in place with set screws or with knurled screws. The grinder has a blower, or like a blower down in the cabinet. And I think the last main part of this grinder is this lower axle here, which could take for one a D-bit grinder attachment, which I will show on a picture here. This makes this grinder basically in a heavy-duty D-bit grinder. I don't have this attachment, but I have the bar that goes in here. Okay, and what this is a radius tangent dresser. We have a diamond up here, and this sits on this lower crossbar and can be adjusted in and out, just like the workhead on a D-bit grinder. And imagine we have a grinding wheel here, and we have the ability to, a little bit down here, to adjust this in this angular motion. And we have a rack and pinion motion here. So this allows us to lock this and press, for example, an angle onto the grinding wheel in the spindle. Or we can dress the face of a cup wheel. Or we can move it like this, dress the OD, circumference of a grinding wheel, of a straight 1A1 grinding wheel. But that's not all. We also have an adjustment up here, and this moves only the smaller slide here. And we have here a lock screw, and now we have a radius dresser. This allows for a full 180-degree swing and allows to dress us concave and convex radii onto a grinding wheel in the spindle. And that's super useful for tool grinding. And the fact that the dresser is not held on the tool head, the work head, where we have our indexing head or something like that, but here on the spindle head. This is super valuable. That way, it's easy to mount. It's very fast to set up, and even in some configurations, you can, instead of removing it, you can just swing it out of the way like this, and still grind up here, but better cover it up down here, so you don't get all the grinding grit on the underside of the dresser. And even if you want to remove it, just loosen one screw, pull it off, and now you can grind without the dresser in the way. We also have a tailstock here, which goes on here. Has a spring-loaded dead center with a Morse taper 1 in here. This is used to grind long tools with support or tools between centers. Grinding between centers is exceptionally nice because the runout is dead perfect. So, as I said, this is a basic overview over the grinder. I have a small cup wheel in here, and this needs to be dressed. This wheel wasn't used in quite some time and got some dings on the face. And I mounted the universal radius angle dresser on the grinder. And you have an infeed here that moves the slide for dressing, for linear dressing, of course. And I also mounted a dust chute. I found a matching one that fits the setup, and we're going to dress this wheel. The tooth rest is mounted to the base of the machine. It's not moving with the carriage that carries the indexing head. I'm using the lower table to position this whole deal. Okay, that's already looking pretty good. I dressed the wheel with 1 degree dish to the center, so I can move the cutter parallel to the wheel and not get wheel burn, hopefully. So that's the setup. Here is a cup grinding wheel that we just dressed to be hollow. I have a tooth rest here, which is height adjustable, micro adjustable, but I can also move the whole column up and down and adjust my clearance angle that way. And this upper slide here is free floating on its roller bearings. And the spindle of the indexing head with the cutter in it is also free spinning. So we go with the gully of the tooth on top of the tooth rest like this. Then we just spin it, and during spinning the cutter will screw itself along the tooth rest, just like this. And normally I would have set a stop so I don't over travel. So that you go in, then you reverse. When you go backwards, you'll need only to put a little bit of drag on the spindle of the indexing head and pull the whole slide back. Then you get a very smooth motion. Then you clear the tooth rest, go beyond it, index to another tooth, drop it on the tooth rest, and move it. Infeed grinding depth is done by moving this whole assembly in and out via the hand crank. So that's peripheral grind with a tooth rest. It works surprisingly nice, very easy to set up and quite fast to grind. This is the setup to grind the primary relief on the front cutting edge. I swung the whole column around so it's almost aligned with the spindle in this direction. I swung it over 2 degrees to give the cutter a dish angle, otherwise the flutes would be parallel or square to the axis of rotation and rub. So you give them a little bit of dish. And also I tilted it back by 3 degrees. That's my primary relief. And I have the whole sliding table set to go in like this. So I'm infeeding like this for my depth of cut during grinding. And this is my grinding motion. And this table of the grinder moves so smooth with all this heavy equipment on it. and you still have very, very sensitive grinding action. And we're indexing the cutter by the means of an indexing disc. This is a combination. For one, we have down here a worm drive, which allows me to fine adjust the position of the cutting edge in relation to the grinding wheel. As you can see, it rotates the spindle very finely. And then, independent from the worm drive, I can pull this out and I have indexing discs. There is an interchangeable index disc below this, and we can get to it. We unscrew this and we pull this piece out, and here is the index disc. This is a 24 tooth index ring. And this goes in here like this. It's keyed, so you have to watch the orientation. And this goes back on. Then you just screw it down until it's tight. And yes, I need to level the machine. It tends to move this direction on its own, so that's rather annoying. Okay, I hope this gave you a idea of the layout of this machine, its capabilities, and how it's at least basically used. So thank you all for watching. Thanks for supporting me, and I'll be back.